It was in the year 1962 when the film To Kill a Mockingbird propelled Gregory Peck to unparalleled heights of acclaim that he was widely perceived as the very embodiment of rectitude amidst the pervasive temptations of the film industry. With his composed bearing and kind eyes, Peck presented himself as the paragon of uprightness. Yet, concealed beneath that tranquil facade, he nurtured a profound aversion, an intense disdain for the disorder and pretense that permeated the cinematic world. On the production sets, Peck frequently found himself in circumstances that severely tested his forbearance. On one occasion, an actor arrived with a valise brimming with spirits and 3 serpents, leaving Peck so exasperated that he exclaimed, "I refuse to work in a menagerie." Another performer even brought a genuine firearm to ascertain the authenticity of a scene, and a ricocheting projectile narrowly deprived the assistant director of his hearing. Peck became so incensed that he abruptly departed the set, vociferating, "I accepted employment to create motion pictures, not to engage in armed conflict." But who were these luminaries that provoked such ire? And what exactly transpired to cause Gregory Peck, the epitome of calm and disciplined gentlemanliness, to lose his composure? It all commenced with Marlon Brando, Hollywood's notorious dissenter, accompanied by his satchel of liquor and a trio of serpents. The motion picture, The Missouri Breaks, teetered on the brink of collapse due to his conduct. Prior to appending his signature to the agreement, Peck had received assurances from the producers that Brando had undergone a transformation, that he was now more serene and professional. However, upon the crew's arrival in Montana, Peck discovered he had been grievously misled. Brando presented himself with a portable trunk filled with potent potables, 3 domesticated reptiles, and a miniature keyboard he termed his instrument for emotional energy transference. Each morning he would isolate himself in a secluded corner, strike a few chords and murmur to himself, "Today, my performance will resonate with the hue of cerulean." Peck, a man who held discipline and exactitude in the highest esteem, found his equilibrium disrupted by the ensuing pandemonium. In a fit of vexation, he inquired, "What in blazes is he doing?" A member of the production team responded, "We're uncertain. It's purportedly a novel approach to fostering emotional connection." The contrast between these 2 celebrated actors could not have been more pronounced. Peck would arrive on the sound stage precisely at 7 o'clock in the morning, meticulously scrutinizing each page of the screenplay in preparation for the pivotal scene, while Brando would saunter in with deliberate leisure at 11:30. This collision of contrasting paradigms, discipline versus disorder, structure versus impulse, ignited a silent yet potent tension that propelled Gregory Peck, the so-called saint of Hollywood, to the precipice of his emotional restraint. Marlon Brando made his entrance onto the set, adorned with a woolen cap pulled low over his brow, cradling a living pigeon in his grasp. In the presence of the entire company, he boldly proclaimed, "This creature shall perform alongside me today. My intention is for the audience to perceive the bond of camaraderie between man and an untamed spirit." The entire assembly fell into a hushed silence, stunned by his audacious declaration. As the scene commenced, Brando failed to deliver a single line with accuracy. Instead, he released the pigeon into the air, his gaze fixed on a distant point, lost in reverie, utterly disregarding Gregory Peck, who stood immobile, clutching his useless script. Peck experienced a profound sense of humiliation. A few days later, Brando commenced whispering his dialogue so faintly that the microphones were incapable of capturing it. Witnessing the unfolding disarray, Gregory Peck finally reached his breaking point. Turning to the director, Arthur Penn, his voice quivered as he stated, I require professional psychological intervention." Arthur Penn immediately took Brando aside, barely suppressing his exasperation. "Marlon," he implored, "this is a cinematic production, not an exorcism. Gregory simply cannot keep pace with your unique method of acting." Brando responded with a chuckle, lit a cigarette, and softly replied, just loudly enough for Peck to overhear, "Then let him endeavor to experience it himself." That evening, the two gentlemen occupied separate ends of the hotel's lounge. A mere handful of tables separated them, yet the distance felt unbridgeable. Brando engaged in boisterous laughter with his companions, his wine sloshing over the rim of his glass, while Peck remained motionless, his gaze fixed coldly on his whiskey. Neither uttered a word, yet the silence that lay between them carried a weight heavier than animosity. Years later, when questioned about Gregory Peck, Brando offered a mere smirk and remarked, "Greg is akin to a triumphant sculpture, handsome, impassive, and devoid of a soul." And when Brando passed away, a journalist posed the question to Peck whether he harbored any remorse. The query hung in the air, unanswered, perhaps because the response was already discernible in the placid, unwavering gaze of the man whom Hollywood had once lauded as its moral compass. Gregory Peck paused momentarily, then responded with swift finality. No, he received what was due. Marlon Brando was no more, but the tempest he had unleashed was far from subsiding. Peck believed he would never again be subjected to such pandemonium on a film set until he encountered his next formidable colleague, Frank Sinatra, the impetuous star whose actions drove Gregory Peck to the brink of distraction. The two nearly engaged in physical altercation during the production of Captain Newman, M.D. Peck was a man of disciplined habits, the type of actor who arrived on set at 6 o'clock in the morning, thoroughly prepared. Sinatra embodied the polar opposite. He would frequently appear well after the midday meal, occasionally still reeking of alcohol, compelling the entire crew to endure a wait until nearly 11:30. Nevertheless, no one, neither the director David Miller nor any member of the lighting or sound departments, dared to offer him criticism. At that juncture, Sinatra was an untouchable figure, an Academy Award-winning performer, a global icon, and the possessor of one of the world's most celebrated vocal talents. His blatant lack of professionalism incensed Peck. Thus, when Sinatra sauntered in late and disengaged, Peck quietly informed the director, "If he is not sober, I am withdrawing from this picture." Director Miller, acutely aware of the perilous consequences of antagonizing Sinatra, could only implore, "Greg, this is Sinatra. Do not push him. You do not wish to perish over this matter." For Sinatra, acting constituted little more than a casual pastime, a respite from his illustrious existence as an entertainer. During one particularly intense scene, while Peck was fully immersed in his character, Sinatra deliberately disrupted the atmosphere by whistling and expectorating on the floor. Peck froze mid-action, fixing his gaze directly upon him. Sinatra responded with a smirk, uttering, "Apologies, St. Gregory." When a young assistant innocently commented that Peck bore a striking resemblance to a clergyman, Sinatra erupted in laughter, raised his glass, and sneered, "A priest? No, he is St. Gregory, the most tedious saint in Hollywood." The ultimate eruption of tension occurred during their final shared scene. Sinatra arrived 3 hours behind schedule, reeking of whiskey. When the director urged him to focus, Sinatra barked, "I do not require this. I have performed at Caesar's Palace. I comprehend emotion." Peck calmly retrieved the script, placed it before Sinatra, and stated in a subdued tone, "This is not a music venue, Frank. We are crafting a cinematic work." Sinatra glared at him, his lips contorting into a grin before snapping back. "Then go and create the motion picture by yourself." And with that declaration, a profound silence descended upon the set. Two titans, positioned at opposing poles of professionalism and pride, locked in a moment destined to be etched in memory as one of the most fraught confrontations in Hollywood's annals. Although Gregory Peck completed his role in Captain Newman, M.D., he never once directed his gaze toward Frank Sinatra during their shared sequences. Even after the film's release, Peck steadfastly declined to attend any press gatherings where Sinatra was slated to appear. Ironically, that very friction between them generated a palpable energy on screen. As one critic observed, Peck introduces control, Sinatra brings chaos, and together they forge a striking dynamic. Later, when questioned about his experience filming Captain Newman, M.D., Peck responded with frigid detachment. Frank possessed talent, but was utterly unmanageable. In his final discourse on the subject, when a reporter inquired whether he would consent to collaborating with Sinatra again, Peck offered a faint smile and remarked, "I would sooner perform opposite an empty chair." At least it would not expectorate upon individuals. But Frank Sinatra was merely the initial trial. A few years onward, Gregory Peck would confront another individual, one whom he would subsequently characterize as the most abysmal experience of his existence. That person was Richard Burton. For Peck, his encounter with Burton proved to be an unforgettable ordeal. Their initial introduction transpired at an opulent gathering in Beverly Hills. Burton entered, a tumbler of scotch in hand, his resonant, theatrical voice echoing through the room as if he were reciting Shakespeare rather than engaging in social discourse. Upon being informed that Gregory Peck was the gentleman responsible for portraying Atticus Finch, Burton erupted in inebriated laughter and declared loudly for all to hear, "Gregory Peck is not an actor. He is a pronouncement on human rights encased in an expensive suit." The assembled company roared with mirth at Burton's unblushing arrogance, but he had not concluded his tirade. At one gala after another, Burton persisted with his mockery, referring to Peck as Saint Gregory or the man who feigns a virtuous existence. Even in interviews, Burton could not resist taking oblique jabs, scoffing, "Peck acts as though he is delivering an address to the United Nations." Then in 1965, when Richard Burton stood at the zenith of his celebrity, a new cinematic endeavor emerged. The producers expressed a desire to feature both Burton and Peck in lead roles. The screenplay was dispatched to Gregory Peck first, and it was then that history nearly repeated itself. Gregory Peck perused merely a few pages of the script before discarding it onto the table and remarking icily, "I can collaborate with anyone except an arrogant buffoon like him." Within 48 hours, the project was unceremoniously terminated. Peck's unwavering professionalism and unimpeachable reputation had extinguished any prospect of a joint venture, inflicting a substantial blow to Richard Burton's ego. In an interview with a British correspondent, Burton confessed that he harbored a profound animosity towards Gregory Peck, not for his identity, but for what he represented. Peck's public image, Burton sneered, was the grandest fabrication Hollywood had ever collectively agreed to perpetuate. Burton made no effort to conceal his personal failings. He consumed alcohol excessively, engaged in notorious extramarital affairs, and frequently lost his temper. To him, this represented the unvarnished truth of art and existence. Peck, conversely, appeared to remain untouched by any of it, serene, disciplined, almost saintly. Burton perceived that perfection as an unbearable pretense, something that belittled his own internal turmoil.
"Every time I behold his countenance, I feel the urge to retch,"
Burton once declared. "He serves as my conscience, the source of shame I perpetually endeavor to disavow. He demonstrates that an individual can subsist without succumbing to delirium, without imbibing spirits, without transgressing moral boundaries, and that reality incites my rage. I detest what he compels me to confront within myself." When Richard Burton passed away in 1984, newspapers across the globe republished that infamous declaration as a testament to his arrogance. The subsequent day, a journalist approached Gregory Peck, inquiring if he had any remarks concerning Burton's demise. Peck gazed into the distance for a brief interval and responded in a hushed tone, "A man such as Burton requires no further commentary from me." While Frank Sinatra had subjected Peck's patience to a rigorous test, and Burton had wounded his pride, the subsequent individual would challenge the very foundations of his convictions. John Wayne, the other facet of America's divided psyche. John Wayne and Gregory Peck harbored a profound mutual animosity. Wayne, the rugged emblem of patriotism, openly endorsed the Vietnam War, while Peck lent his signature to petitions opposing it and championed civil rights. To Wayne, Peck was an ineffectual moralizer. To Peck, Wayne personified blind aggression. Their smoldering resentment finally erupted at a Hollywood soiree in 1971. Clad in a leather shirt, Wayne stood before a gathering of producers and actors, raised his glass and growled, "Were America populated by men like Gregory Peck, we would have been vanquished before the initial shot was even fired." Laughter rippled through the room, but it swiftly dissipated when Peck, seated at a distant table, calmly arose and retorted, "And were America comprised of men like you, we would never experience the tranquility of peace." From that evening forward, their conflict transitioned into the public sphere. Both staunchly refused to attend any function where the other was scheduled to be present. When the American Film Institute extended an invitation for them to participate in a forum discussing heroes in American cinema, Peck unequivocally declined, stating, "I have no desire to share notoriety with him." However, fate had not yet concluded its machinations. In 1970, Universal Studios proposed a sequel to True Grit, featuring Rooster Cogburn with John Wayne and Gregory Peck as co-leads. The contractual arrangements were nearly finalized when Wayne observed Peck's name, slammed the screenplay onto the table, and roared, "I will not perform with that unpatriotic individual." Peck's retort was equally resolute and dispassionate. Two men, two legends, and two diametrically opposed perspectives on the true essence of America. Eternally divided by pride, unwavering conviction, and the ideals they refused to relinquish. Gregory Peck met the director's gaze and stated with firm resolve, "I would sooner perish." The antagonism between him and John Wayne had reached its zenith. As the years progressed, their divergence only deepened. Wayne became increasingly engaged in far-right political movements, while Peck addressed Congress on matters of peace and civil rights. For a span of 2 decades, these two men abstained from even the slightest gesture of civility. When their paths converged in the corridors of the Academy Awards, Wayne would avert his gaze, while Peck would pause, adjust his tie, and proceed in silence, a subtle yet unmistakable demonstration of disdain. In Wayne's final years, as he battled illness, a journalist inquired of Peck whether he intended to visit him. Peck paused, his expression inscrutable, and replied, "I offer prayers for his soul, yet I remain unable to bear the sight of his countenance." When John Wayne died in 1979, the flags of Hollywood flew at half-mast. Hundreds of luminaries dispatched floral tributes, and accolades poured in from across the globe. Gregory Peck, however, did not attend the funeral. Instead, he dispatched a solitary missive to the Wayne family containing only 2 words: "My condolences." But following Wayne, another individual would challenge Peck's composure, this time through an entirely different avenue. Not through arrogance or political posturing, but via maddening eccentricity. His name was Orson Welles, the brilliant maverick who never ceased his discourse. Welles was counted among Hollywood's select group of true geniuses, but he was also the singular individual capable of pushing the famously composed Gregory Peck to the brink of losing his self-control. From the very inception of filming Moby Dick, the atmosphere on set was stifling. Peck, as was his custom, arrived punctually, prepared for his evocative portrayal of Captain Ahab. However, 2 hours later, there was still no sign of Welles, who was cast as Father Map. Then, seemingly from nowhere, he materialized, enveloped in a cloud of cigarette smoke and the lingering aroma of spirits. When director John Huston admonished him for his tardiness, Welles merely smirked, draped an arm around Peck's shoulder, and mockingly declared, "Come now, gentlemen, let us not be so excessively serious." Peck's brow furrowed, and he quietly brushed the arm away. Welles's blatant disregard for discipline and respect had already crossed his threshold. Matters rapidly deteriorated. Welles began to interject himself into the production, revising dialogue, proposing alternative camera angles, and even contradicting Huston's directorial guidance in the presence of the crew. During a scene depicting Ahab's supplication, Welles interrupted, murmuring as if deranged, "Ahab is driven to madness by the divine." While filming the sermon delivered aboard the ship, Welles completely disregarded the script, delivering his lines in a deep, frenzied tone that was both mesmerizing and utterly unrecognizable. Peck, positioned just beyond the camera's frame, observed Welles perform as if possessed. When Huston finally shouted, "Cut!" Welles did not cease. He turned directly to Peck and stated, "Do you perceive that? That is unadulterated madness. You will never comprehend, Gregory. You grasp absolutely nothing." Peck stood frozen, his jaw tightly clenched, every muscle taut with indignation. The thought flashed through his mind with the speed of lightning. "May divine forgiveness be granted for my restraint from striking him." Welles did not appear to register his presence. He tilted his head back, his gaze directed toward the heavens, a faint, maniacal grin playing on his lips. "He is unaware of the true meaning of madness," Welles muttered. "What a pathetic, insignificant fellow." From that day forward, Gregory Peck maintained a considerable distance. Welles, on the other hand, boasted that his own performance had been instrumental in salvaging the entire production. Years later, when queried about Welles in an interview, Peck's tone grew somber. "How best to articulate it?" he inquired after a deliberate pause. He was akin to an individual who had plummeted from the celestial realms. Decades onward, Orson Welles would recount the anecdote to a group of students, chuckling as if the event were of no consequence. "Gregory Peck is a decent man," he remarked, a smirk evident. "However, he lacks a certain élan. My intention was merely to impart a mild jolt." Following Moby Dick, Peck never again collaborated with anyone remotely resembling Welles. He deliberately avoided artistic prima donnas and idiosyncratic temperaments, opting instead for roles that mirrored morality, disciplined conduct, and a defined purpose. That encounter with Welles imparted a harsh lesson. Genius is often unaccompanied by integrity. Nevertheless, despite all the fiery, imperious individuals with whom he had crossed paths, the one who truly unsettled him never raised his voice nor uttered an insult. He had no need to. His very presence was sufficient to make Peck feel diminished. He was a man consumed by an almost pathological compulsion to eclipse him, Kirk Douglas. For close to 20 years, Peck and Douglas engaged in a tacit conflict, outwardly cordial, yet inwardly venomous. By the late 1940s, Peck was already an established star of the highest caliber, the very image of Hollywood virtue. Douglas, newly celebrated for his role in Champion, harbored a deep disdain for everything that image represented. He would frequently sneer, "Gregory simply stands there and allows his moral rectitude to perform the acting." In his public statements, Douglas never missed an opportunity to deliver a barbed remark. When asked to elucidate the distinction between them, he grinned and declared, "Gregory Peck is as rigid as a plank of wood, and that is precisely why I shall always surpass him." The statement circulated rapidly, exacerbating the animosity between them. Their rivalry reached its apex in 1963 when Gregory Peck received the Academy Award for To Kill a Mockingbird, immortalizing him as Atticus Finch, the quintessential embodiment of moral courage. As the assembled audience rose to offer their applause, Kirk Douglas, seated in the rear row, beverage in hand, muttered audibly enough for those in his vicinity to hear, "Were he genuinely Atticus Finch, this industry would not be submerged in such duplicity." Peck overheard him. He turned, cast a brief, distant glance in Douglas's direction, and remained silent. Later, when questioned by a journalist regarding Douglas's remark, Peck offered a concise reply. He simply relishes the spectacle. Douglas proceeded to pursue roles characterized by raw defiance and audacious spirit, such as Paths of Glory and Spartacus, films that exuded an aggressive intensity. Peck, meanwhile, maintained his position as the calm, moral core of Hollywood. Two men, two distinct realms, both brilliant, both proud, and both perpetually haunted by the reflection they perceived in one another. Over the ensuing years, that unspoken rivalry began to consume Kirk Douglas. It hardened him, rendered him more vociferous, quicker to anger, desperate to establish something that no one had requested. He evolved into the antithesis of Gregory Peck, fiery, competitive, and solitary. While Peck stood as Hollywood's paragon of integrity, Douglas acquired a different appellation, the Old Wolf, perpetually ravenous for recognition. When Columbia Pictures extended an invitation to both gentlemen to co-star in The Heroes of Telemark in 1960, director Ray Bolting recalled that Peck declined almost immediately. "I have no inclination to share the screen with an individual who performs solely with his jaw and resorts to shouting," he stated softly. Douglas, upon learning of this remark, erupted in anger. He branded Peck a hypocrite with a golden halo, sneering that Gregory was nothing more than a product of studio polish, a saint meticulously crafted by publicists. From that juncture onward, reconciliation became an impossibility. They became the two poles of classic Hollywood, intellect versus instinct, discipline versus desire, silence versus clamor. Their feud persisted for decades, enduring award ceremonies, the passage of time, and shifting societal landscapes. In an interview conducted during the 1980s, when questioned as to his belief regarding the last true luminary of the Golden Age, Douglas responded with palpable pride, "Gregory Peck may be a star, but I am a man, and I would rather be authentic than a monument erected upon falsehoods." Peck offered no verbal reply. He merely offered a faint smile and remained silent. To those who sought his perspective, he once remarked, "Some individuals dedicate their entire lives to proving they are not inferior to anyone else, and subsequently forget that no one is observing them any longer." Years later, time exerted its softening influence upon both men. In 2001, subsequent to Kirk Douglas's incapacitation by a stroke, a reporter inquired about his protracted rivalry with Peck. Tears welled in his eyes. "Greg was the man I resented, envied, and ultimately wished I could emulate." Upon hearing of Douglas's condition, Peck simply stated, "I no longer harbor animosity towards him, convey my deepest sympathies." If only we had truly grasped each other's perspectives. Their saga transcended a mere Hollywood feud. It represented the understated sorrow of two individuals striving for authenticity in an arena that championed pretense. Peck championed a truth discovered through subtle control, while Douglas insisted on truth being proclaimed vociferously. Nevertheless, in the final reckoning, their legacies weren't defined by who emerged victorious, but by the profound connection that inextricably linked them. Two spirits ablaze under the same merciless glare. For Hollywood, beneath its dazzling veneer is not a manufactory of dreams. Rather, it is a stage constructed on artifice. Beneath the glitter lies the apparatus of deception. Conviction is performed, grins are practiced, sentiments bear expiration notices etched into binding agreements, ardor is merchandised, suffering is digitally refined, and affection is subjected to filtering until it becomes marketable. Renown transforms into specie, corporeal forms into implements, solitude into an insurmountable liability. Every shot is meticulously planned, every sob quantified, every embrace illuminated with precision. Even verity must be condensed to conform to the imposed timetable. The luminescence that once unveiled the essence of a person now dazzles it, peddling an appearance while devouring the very spirit it purports to celebrate. Concealed behind the plush draperies reside the spectres of those who once trusted that the glare of public attention could offer salvation. Yet it never rescued a single soul. The light offered no absolution. It was a consuming conflagration. And within that inferno, the fragile perished silently while the resilient mastered the art of projecting composure amidst the haze. Because in Hollywood, even suffering is obliged to appear aesthetically pleasing. They persist in dubbing it the American aspiration. However, should you linger there sufficiently long, beyond the ovations, past the effervescent flashes, you might perceive an alternate resonance, something subtle, unvarnished, and profoundly poignant. The exhalation of those who once placed their faith in the radiance, only to later comprehend that the luminescence was never truly theirs.